All right. Hi, everyone. So today we are going to talk about biointeractions, or we're really gonna be thinking about this question: how do we organize an ecosystem? So a lot of what we talked about today is a review from your seventh grade science unit on ecosystems. Uh, but if there's something you don't remember, that's totally fine. By the end of the day, you're definitely gonna remember it. Um, so let's get started. So today's warm-up question is on Google Classroom, um, and it, uh, oh goodness, what is it called? The warm-up is called either 9/14/2020 warm-up or 9/12/2020 warm-up. Uh, and yes, that should be right. Um, so the question, it's just 5 questions. It's just reviewing some of your knowledge about energy pyramids and trophic levels. And yeah, so if you, I'm not going to go over the answers right now because um, those questions are also on the exit slip at the end of the day. And if you didn't get all the questions right for the warm up, that's totally fine. You will be able to do it by the end of the day. And great. And if you did get all the questions right, then that's awesome too. That we will be learning probably some new stuff for you, or some stuff that you haven't heard in a very long time. So that will help you with the second part of the exit slip. And we'll talk about the exit slip later. But all right. So today's learning target is I can describe the interdependence between producers, consumers, and decomposers. By now, we probably know what a producer, a consumer, and a decomposer is. But what does this word interdependence mean? So depend, if you depend on something or someone, it means you rely on them. And whereas inter, this prefix right here, inter, means between or among. So the inter prefix, when it's in front of a word, it means that that there are some things that have to work together. So interdependence means when everything in a system has to rely on each other. So in an ecosystem, producers, consumers, and decomposers interdepend on one another. They have to rely on one another. Right. Today's agenda, we just did the warm up, which was on trophic levels, not food chains versus food webs. That's wrong. Next, we're going to review food webs really quickly. Third, we're going to do a Kahoot that will review your 7th grade ecosystem knowledge. And then 4, we're going to talk about energy pyramids. And then lastly, we will do our exit slip. So really quickly, the food webs review. Last class, we had an exit slip in which you needed to look at a diagram of an ecosystem that a student made. And you had to make 2 corrections to that diagram. The diagram had some mistakes, and you needed to fix them. A lot of students missed that question. So I wanted to really quickly go over food webs one more time. So looking at this food web, what do these arrows mean? So the arrows show the way energy moves in a food web. So for example, if this shrew eats a spider, the energy from the spider goes to the shrew. So these arrows, they always point from prey to predator. It's like, we're human and we love eating snacks. If you eat a snack, all of the energy in that snack, all of the calories in that snack go from the snack to you. So if you were to draw a food chain between you and like a bag of chips, the arrow should point from the chips to you. It's the same thing here in this food web. The spider is like a bag of chips. The shrew is like a human. The arrow should point from the spider to the shrew. Great. So another way to remember this is if we look at this food web, there's something very unusual about this food web, but I kind of like it, but very unusual, is we have the sun included in this food web. The sun is not an organism, so the sun really shouldn't be in the food web, but here, thinking about the sun, we see the sun's energy goes to the plant. So this is showing that energy moves from the sun to the plant. So that's an easier way to remember which way the arrow should point. The arrow should always show which way energy is going. All right. Cool. So if you haven't done your lesson 3 exit slip, or if you haven't redone your lesson 3 exit slip, I want you to think about the arrow directions as you look at it. Yeah, that's a big hint that I will give you. All right, so the next thing that we did was a Kahoot. We did it as a class. It was reviewing a lot of your 7th grade ecosystems knowledge. We're not going to do this asynchronously, meaning I'm not going to do it in this video. I will post a link and you can do it by yourself on your own time. Yes, you're going to do it by yourself on your own time. There's one quick point that I want to make about decomposers. So somewhere in the Kahoot, it's going to talk about decomposers. And there's sort of this question about decomposers. Decomposers are connected to everything in the food web because they eat the dead bodies of all organisms, and also they eat the waste. So they eat the poop and the pee of all organisms. And so the question is, where do we put them in our food webs? We have two possible solutions. One possible solution is to put the decomposers in a central location and draw every organism to that decomposer. So if you remember from our FOSS food web, we put the decomposer over to the left, and then we drew an arrow from every organism in the Mono Lake ecosystem to the decomposer. It's very messy, very chaotic. But that is one way that you can draw a food web that includes a decomposer. Another thing you can do is you can draw a box that spans the whole side. I don't know why this is not moving. Okay, you can also draw a box that spans the whole side of the food web. And then you can draw an arrow from each trophic level going to the decomposer. So what I mean is this. So as we can see here, we have decomposers in a box over to the left, and from each trophic level we have an arrow pointing to the box. So we have an arrow from these quaternary consumers, which we haven't really talked about. We have an arrow going from them to the decomposers, from tertiary consumers going to decomposers, secondary consumers, primary consumers, and producers. So this is a much cleaner way of drawing decomposers into our food web. All right. And so we've talked about the Kahoot. We did a little bit of review from the Kahoot. The next thing I want to talk about is energy pyramids. So this thing right here, it's actually not technically a food web, it's an energy pyramid. And the energy pyramid just shows us where the energy in an ecosystem is. So, all right, so it shows us where the energy in an energy pyramid is. And it's in a pyramid shape because we know that that things at the bottom of the energy pyramid have the most energy among them. And we know that things at the top actually have very little energy available to them. And I'll explain why in just a second, but basically, it's because of the rule of 10. So the rule of 10 says that only 10% of the energy from a trophic level can be passed on to the next trophic level. So let's think about this example ecosystem. Let's say that all of the producers in this ecosystem are worth 10,000 calories. So calories, just like when you eat something, you get calories. Let's say all the producers in an ecosystem are worth 10,000 calories. When a grasshopper eats those producers, the grasshopper can only get 1,000 of those calories, or 10% of the plant's energy. And it's the same thing with the shrew. The shrew can only get 100 calories from the grasshopper. And then the snake can only get 10 calories from the shrew. Why is that? It's due to heat. All the energy in an ecosystem comes from the sun. So see that light energy. Producers convert that light energy into food for themselves and thus food for the creatures that eat the producers. So that's how energy enters the ecosystem. But energy also exits the ecosystem as heat. So I think all organisms produce heat. That's just something. What happens in our bodies? Everything that happens in our bodies produces heat, because everything in our bodies uses energy. And usually, when you use energy, you convert a little bit of it into heat. And you know this because, well, maybe you don't. I'm from Michigan, and so if you've ever had to stand outside in the cold on a very cold winter day, and if you shiver a lot, you'll start to feel tired or start to feel hungry. And it's because your body is converting so much energy into heat to keep you warm. Organisms waste a lot of their energy into heat. And when that happens, we lose the energy in that heat. No organism can eat heat. We can't use heat. It keeps us warm, yeah, but we can't eat it. So all of that heat energy is lost. So that means these producers produce a lot of heat, and when they do that, we lose that energy. So maybe 9,000 calories of the producers actually goes to heat. So the grasshoppers can only eat 1,000 of it. That's all that's left. And it's the same thing with the shrew, and the same thing with the snake. So you'll notice that the amount of energy, this box right here, it's very big. Primary producers, a little small. Secondary consumers, much smaller. Tertiary consumers, you can barely see it. This shows you how much energy there is at each trophic level. It also shows you how many organisms you could expect to see. So according to this, we're going to have a ton of producers, and we're going to have very few tertiary consumers. So this is represented in the energy pyramid. The things at the very bottom are going to be very plentiful. There are going to be a lot of them. In the Mono Lake ecosystem, there are a ton of algae. Of course, algae is very small, so you can't see them all, but there are a ton in the Mono Lake ecosystem. And then at the top, we have coyotes. Because coyotes have so little energy available to them, we don't see that many coyotes in Mono Lake. And so that's why this part of the energy pyramid is the smallest. It's the least amount of energy. This part has the least amount of energy, and that's why there are the least amount of organisms. Right? Whereas down here, this has the most amount of energy, so it has the most organisms. All right. The next really quick thing that I wanted to explain is there are two other words that we have to know. The words are heterotroph and autotroph. Um, so autotroph, auto means self. So autotrophs are organisms that produce energy by themselves. So really, autotrophs are producers. That's just another way of saying producer. And then heterotrophs are organisms that eat other organisms. So basically, just another word for consumers. Why do we need more words? Why do we need autotroph and heterotroph when we already have producer and consumer? I don't know. But that is that those are two words that sometimes we can see when we talk about ecosystems. So it's important for us to know. So looking at our Mono Lake energy pyramid, where are the autotrophs? So the autotrophs are the producers. They make their own food. So all of this green box, those are the producers. And then where are the heterotrophs? Right. The heterotrophs are all of these consumers. So that's the blue, the yellow, and the red. All those are heterotrophs. The only point I wanted to make here really quick was that remember all energy in the energy pyramid in the food web comes from the sun, which is why the producers have the most energy because they can convert as much of the sun's energy as they want into food. Well, assuming that they have access to air and the temperature is right and there's water, but if all those conditions are right, they can convert as much sun energy as they want, as long as there's space for them. And then lastly, there actually is a third place you can put decomposers in the energy pyramid or food web. Another place, actually in the energy pyramid, another place you can put it is kind of at the bottom of the energy pyramid. So if you look on this energy pyramid, sort of down here, underneath soil, it says decomposers. So that's another place we can put our decomposers. And I changed this energy pyramid to include halobacteria, which are the decomposers from Mono Lake. So now they're just kind of floating at the bottom. All right, so that's what I wanted to say about energy pyramids. Do you, I was going to ask if you have any questions, but you're watching this on your own, so you can't ask me. But cool. So the last thing we have to do is our exit slip. And the exit slip has two parts. The first part is to define terms. So in part one, we're just looking at the terms that you used in your warm-up. That's about 5 questions long. And part two is narrate how energy moves through an ecosystem. Please use complete sentences. For this exit slip, and with all exit slips really, I want to know what you know. I don't need to know what Google knows. So these help me plan for our next class. If you give me the answer that Google gave you, then I don't know if you know it. I don't know if you learned it. So it's really important that you just do these exit slips on your own. All right, so let me show you the exit slip. All right, so the exit slip looks like this. Like I said, part one, 5 questions, just asking you to define the terms. Part two is question number 6 and question number 7. It says, using your answers from number 1 through 5 as a guide, explain how energy moves through an ecosystem, starting with sunlight entering the ecosystem. Write in complete sentences. And then use all of the following words in your answer. decomposer, heat, primary consumer, producer, secondary consumer, sunlight, tertiary consumer, and then waste, which means poop or pee. So here, I want you to tell me how energy moves through an ecosystem. So you can start with first, sunlight. First, sunlight hits the producer, and the producer uses the sunlight energy to create food. Then, primary consumers eat the producer. Blah 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 blah. So you're, like I said, you're going to narrate how energy moves through an ecosystem. Narrate means tell a story. You're going to tell a story in logical order using these words. To help you remember which words you have used and which words you haven't used, I created a checklist down here. So as you use the words in your answer in number 6, you can just check them off. That'll just help you keep track. This question 7 is not graded. It's just to help you keep track of what you're doing. All right. And yes, please remember to write incomplete sentences. When you write incomplete sentences, I can see your whole thoughts, and it's much easier to understand your thinking. All right, so that's all that I have for today. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, good luck.